MediaTech Ventures Community Spotlight brought to you by Insperity, powerful HR solutions with exceptional follow-through. HR that makes a difference.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Community Spotlight. I'm your host, John Zazzaro, president and co-founder of MediaTech Ventures, here with the contentpreneur or content queen, some might call her, Amanda Horvath. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. So grateful to be here with you.
I'm glad we were able to make it work, going back and forth between Instagram and like email, and it's just like there's so many different ways now that people get a hold of each other.
Doesn't it just drive you crazy? Too many ways. It's like text messages, Instagram,
Exactly.
email. Yes,
And
totally.
as soon as you get one of them down, then they like ping you on LinkedIn or something like that, and then it's just all confusing. So I want to get right into it. You have been producing content for a long time now. And I want to go back though, right? What got you interested? Was it something at a young age that really got you interested in film and production? What kind of inspired you to go down the path of creating content?
So I wish that I could remember who it was that asked me this question, but I think maybe even going into ninth grade, and someone asked me, I just got an echo. Someone asked me if I could do anything, if it was talent didn't matter. You could be a basketball player if you wanted, even though I'm only 5'1" or whatever. What would you be? And out of nowhere, I was like, I would be a film director. And my mom heard that and was like, oh, that's interesting. Let's put her in some Austin Film School classes. So I actually took a class with adults because that was the only time I could take it. And that kind of got me interested, and then joined a media program at my school where we record or announce the news every day via a news channel or whatever. And then, yeah, that was kind of the kickstart of everything.
That's awesome. Let's just put her in a production class and see where it lands. You know, I think good on you, Mom. I mean, look at you now, right? Mom was like, I knew it all along.
Actually, she was still convincing me to be an accountant up until going to college.
Right. But what's the backup plan, right? Like, what if the video stuff doesn't work out, right? I mean, I was a professional musician, right? And I knew I wanted to be a rock star coming out of high school. And so my parents were like, yeah, I know, but like, what if it doesn't, you know? And I'm like, what do you mean? Anyway, so it is rare though, right? I mean, it's rare to see somebody actually take their college degree and run with it, right? I mean, like, we're in an economy of generalists, generally speaking, pun intended. And in this case, you received a BA in film production from Loyola Marymount University. You graduated in 2013, but then you started consulting in 2014. So what I'm curious about is, you know, you were at CBS, you did some festival work on the intern side. What pushed you to go your own way instead of trying to work in, you know, these bigger kind of production and media organizations?
Absolutely. So I was living in LA after graduating, working for a film festival as a programming coordinator. So that internship turned into an actual job. And essentially, it was my first insight into entrepreneurship and the, excuse my language, shit show that it can be behind the scenes.
Oh my God.
And I was essentially a child between two divorcing parents of, you know, two co-founders that couldn't get along. And I saw this experience of, okay, here they are running this festival that's doing pretty well. It's getting out there, it's getting press, and it's a total mess behind the scenes. So if they can do this, I can do this too. So I decided after splitting ways with them that I wanted to start freelancing, just kind of testing out, making videos on my own with different businesses in my area. I knew I wasn't going to live in LA forever. And if I was going to live there, I had to live near the beach. I was not going to live in a concrete jungle. So I had to, almost out of necessity, start working in my area, freelancing, instead of plugging in to the more corporate world of Hollywood. So that's kind of how that initially got kick-started in terms of working with business owners. And then I fell in absolute love with working with them and helping their vision turn into a reality and getting them in front of new audiences, getting new eyeballs on their stuff. And I became obsessed with marketing. How do we actually take a video and get it seen and get results with that video? So I started testing tons of different approaches to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and started to kind of get the hang of it.
So that's a really good point. And I think a lot of times people confuse marketing with advertising, promotion. It's just, I love and hate what I do professionally, because I usually talk to somebody that's been ripped off by 5 other marketers when they're tacticians. And, anyway, that's a bourbon conversation in a different time. So you took these skill sets, you realized you really enjoyed working with business owners and helping them tell their stories, but then you became obsessed with the world of marketing, right? And those are 2 very different expertise, right? Buckets. Like it's usually the marketer that helps kind of position what the videographer and the video work is going to convey, right? What were some of the big challenges early on that you saw trying to bridge that gap? And what were some big aha moments for you that were like, oh, this is how it works, and this is what we need to focus on to really bring those stories to life?
So I took B school with Marie Forleo right when I started my business. I've always been the kind of person, and this continues to be the case, that whenever I'm going into something, I'm going to learn from the pros and then iterate from there. So I was like, okay, how do I personally market my business? How do I get myself out there to start getting clients in one of the most competitive cities for video, right? LA. So it kind of started with me to a certain extent working on my own marketing. But as I started learning about online marketing, learning through her, listening to Amy Porterfield's Online Marketing Made Easy podcast, which was a huge influence for me early on, as well as still to this day. And I started kind of telling these business owners, I was like, hey, I noticed you don't have a way to grab people's emails. Why don't you start adding a freebie? Maybe let's start testing out having a video that promotes that freebie, and just starting to kind of tweak and test and try this and try that. So it wasn't necessarily like one big aha moment. It was more so the iteration over time to figure out, like, here I am, I'm creating videos for businesses, and if these videos don't actually do anything for the business, then I'm going to have to constantly find new clients. So I better figure out how to make these videos actually work.
So I like that, because you were kind of, you were eating your own dog food, right?
Yes.
Like, if I'm going to go sell my services, I better be able to show them that I'm actually doing it for myself successfully. Otherwise, again, especially being in LA, there's probably a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? Like, you can show, like, look at all the people I worked for. I know, but like, have you worked for yourself? Well, I mean, but look at all the people I worked for. So that's really funny. So it's kind of you were learning as you went, but then applied that to being an entrepreneur. That's, I mean, best way to do it, right? Especially in today's digital economy.
And I think as marketers too, I'm not sure how much of your audience is necessarily marketers, but it's like, or anything, any sort of service that you're providing, we get so stuck building other people's brands using that service. And so ours is terrible. And I think that if there was an aha moment, that was certainly it, of, oh, I'm telling all these other people to do this. What if I started doing it for myself and listening to my own advice? That was huge, for sure.
Yeah, and as consultants, we always do more for our clients than we do for ourselves, right? So we're always like, wait a minute, we probably should do that. We should probably make ourselves a client and a priority at some point throughout this journey. So
you start to get it in a very different way when you genuinely put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Oh, this isn't as easy to step in front of the camera. I do feel super nervous. Like, all of those things start to kind of come to the surface, and you learn a lot more about your customers by doing that.
Absolutely. So what brought you back to Austin, and what was that transition like, going from LA, notoriously obviously known for the entertainment industry, connections, people, contacts at your fingertips, to Austin, where they cut the film incentives and, you know, we're still trying to figure out who we are as a city? What was that like?
So I had this theory when I was leaving LA. I was like, man, LA's, you have to be a cog in the wheel to really fit in here. And I don't feel like a cog in the wheel. I feel like I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do my own thing. And being an entrepreneur in LA is a whole different game than, you know, playing one role on a film set kind of thing. And my audience was small business owners and entrepreneurs, and Austin, the town that I actually grew up in, was blowing up. And it was the number one city to start a business. There were so many entrepreneurs. It was the next up and coming Silicon Valley. And I knew that I didn't want to live in LA forever, but something inside of me was like, LA is a dying city. People that are staying here, you're running so fast, you're running on the treadmill, it's so expensive, you can't get traction in your business. Why don't I go back to Austin and try making this happen? My family was here too, so that was a big draw as well. I got here, I became a big fish in a little pond, landed some big clients within weeks of arriving. And I was like, okay, no looking back. This is amazing. I doubled my rates within the first year of being here. And yeah, it just went super well.
So some of those big clients are really well-known influencers. And how did you find that niche, or at least a demand for those types of clients?
So I had taken all of the marketing efforts that I was doing in LA. And when I moved to Austin, because I had to be so cutting edge when I was living in LA in order to just survive, when I got here, those things took off. So I was the number one videographer on Yelp. I had really good SEO going for me. I would post on Craigslist, which actually got me a lot of great leads. And it was through a matter of connections. I was also like really into networking. So I hit the ground running, and every networking event I'd go to, I'd say I'd do video marketing, and boom, I need your work, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to do that. So it was a random string of connections. A girlfriend that I met whose friend owns a hostel that we went over to, that he happens to be business partners with Ryan Holiday, who then connected me with, you know, this other influencer. So that's kind of how it happened.
That's awesome. I love that about Austin. It's a very small, big city. And
I love it.
Everybody generally wants you to do well. It's one of the things I'm going to miss for sure, being back in the cold heart of Chicago. I'm just kidding. There's a lot of great people here too. It's just a little bit colder during the holidays.
Very much so.
So let's fast forward a little bit. We are now in the era of COVID, where if you are a non-essential business owner and you don't have an online presence and or media, you don't exist. So have you noticed since March a lot more people either digesting your content or coming to you to figure out what they should be doing, what they should be working on? Or because people are so financially strapped, are you finding that they're starting to pull back more on this idea of marketing because they're just trying to survive?
I think the things that I've been saying for the past, however many years, people are finally listening to. It's like,
love that feeling.
Yeah, right. It's like, you got to have an online presence. If you don't have it, whatever. It's like having a website X number of years ago. If you don't have a website, you're going to be irrelevant very quickly. Well, video is kind of the same thing. If you have to learn the necessary skills to be able to have your content be seen in today's world, oversaturated world. So I started the year off with, I believe it was 4,400 subscribers, and I'm coming up to 22,000 now. So it definitely has spiked in terms of the interest. Yeah.
Wow. So you're at 4,400 at the beginning of the year?
Yeah.
And now you're close to, wow. That's incredible. Congrats.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And again, it's because you've been continuously working that muscle, right? But now there's so many different ways to create content, right? And I don't know if you saw recently though, but the Google just released the web stories plugin for WordPress as well. So now you can create those stories that you would traditionally do on Instagram or TikTok, right? Or Facebook stories, and you can actually promote it through the website.
That's awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Can you talk a little bit about what your thought process is or your strategy around how to approach content, and then, thinking about it from the top down, right? I start with this one piece and then it branches into, all of these different elements in different buckets in social assets.
Absolutely. So I really like to start with the individual first and foremost. So whether you're a business owner running a big business or you're a solopreneur and it's just you and your lonesome self making it happen, I believe that having a personal brand in today's world is going to help you no matter what. You can always drive traffic back to your business, and it's almost like this online resume to a certain extent today. So I like to really start by digging into people's past and looking at, who are you? That is one of the hardest questions to answer outside of what do you currently do, right? Who are you? So it's starting with looking at the patterns that have really popped up throughout your life. Like, what areas of study did you like in elementary school, in middle school, high school, college? And digging into those to start to recognize, oh, okay, there's some patterns here, things that have popped up throughout my life. And if I build my online persona on those patterns, I can be rest assured that those patterns are going to continue into the future, no matter what I choose to do. So as entrepreneurs, we love to change businesses every couple of years. We sell one, we do whatever. So if you base it off of who you truly are, your online persona, then I think that is the absolute best place to start. So sound good on the first set?
So I appreciate the kind of sticking to your real self, right? Now, when it comes to thinking about strategically making content, right, that's overwhelming, right? Because you can do a blog post, you can write an article, you could do a podcast, you could do a video. Do you have any method to your madness as to, I'm going to start with this one piece, and then I know that I'm going to get this much mileage out of it? What does that process look like for you that you would advise somebody that was getting into creating the content game on how to approach that?
It's super simple, and sometimes simple is harder than you think it is, right? It's always harder. You choose one platform, that's it, and go all in on that one platform. Until you feel super confident that you've nailed that platform, do not move on. So personally, I started on YouTube, and the reason that I started on YouTube is because it is an amazing platform for having people find you who don't know who you are, because it's a search engine. It's actually not a social media platform. Mm-hmm. So it's people go in there and they're looking up how to film a video on your iPhone, and then I pop up. And it's a step-by-step process for how to rank on YouTube that also gets you ranked on Google. So it's the long-term game, but at the same time, you're not running on the hamster wheel of creating content, which you are on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, and especially TikTok or whatever. So for me personally, I think that's a big thing. These days, I'm telling people start on LinkedIn. And I'm about to personally go all in on LinkedIn too, because LinkedIn is like where Facebook was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's your content. There's more users on the platform than there are content creators. So when you release something on LinkedIn, it's going to have a long lifespan, up to like 2 weeks, compared to 2 seconds on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. So with that, once you kind of know who you are and you have an explainer statement when it comes to the actual like recording content piece, it's all about providing value. You want to create short form video content, the Gary V style kind of videos with the title at the top and the subtitles at the bottom and a progress bar moving along screen telling you how much time you have left. And I have a social teaser template on my website that you guys can just take and steal and just use that if you'd rather not have to create it yourself. And just focus on providing value and sending people back to your main opt-in, your main freebie on your website.
Mm-hmm.
So I can dive deeper, but I think it's just like simple. Yeah, no, one platform,
I
provide value.
With you on that. I guess my follow-up question to that would be, how do I know what platform's right for me? Right? I mean, because I tell musicians all the time, just as an example, right? Being a professional musician for over a decade myself, just get really good at understanding one of the social media, right? Because when you understand that, there's a lot of underlying similarities across the board, and you're going to be able to take what you learn from A and apply it to B, apply it to C, right? But then learn how to build a website, understand conversion copy, right? All those other things, and you're going to be ahead of 90% of the musicians out there in the game. What would you recommend for people on how to find what's most comfortable for them in platform, from a platform standpoint?
Absolutely. So the reason I said LinkedIn, right? And if you are at all related to the business space, I would highly recommend going in on that, just because you're going to get traction really quickly. And I believe that no matter what platform you should start on, if you are going to be going all in with video, eventually you want to end up on YouTube, because you're not going to be running on that hamster wheel. So let's just say initially the options are Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You could do TikTok. Personally, I haven't gotten into TikTok because of the whole Chinese government conspiracy kind of stuff, going on. But I think that the decision comes down to you personally. Where do you spend the most time? Because when you're creating on a platform, you're going to have so much better engagement if you are also going on the platform and engaging. And so I think that's something really to consider. In some ways, Facebook and Instagram are similar with the stories component, like Instagram stories, and creating on there. They can be posted to both. And that's one of the easiest ways to create, is just not have to edit anything.
That's a really good point. Play to your strengths and what you're comfortable with. Everybody always is just like, well, like, where do you see your business being? Is it more of a Facebook business, LinkedIn business? Because obviously as a musician, you're not going to get a lot of mileage out of LinkedIn per se, right?
Maybe not though. People are on LinkedIn looking at, I'm going to butcher every single term within the music industry, but like, I want to get my music into a TV show. I want to get this. I'm looking for people. I'm going on LinkedIn and I'm looking for other industry experts within my area so that I can network and get my stuff out there too. I want to find an agent. I want to do this. So there actually are people on LinkedIn that are for your business as well.
For sure. It's just that LinkedIn, I mean, they played into their strength, you know what I mean? That's why they got acquired.
100%.
Soft, and the creative community was kind of an afterthought for them, which is fine. They do enterprise really, really well. And there are people on the business side of the entertainment industry that obviously have profiles on there. I want to ask you about, so this idea of being everywhere all the time, right? Like as marketers, as videographers, we want to be in the mind of the consumer, right? We want to constantly be. So when it comes to things like StreamYard or OBS, all of these things that allow you to push to all these channels at once, what is your, is it better? Maybe not better, but is it, we'll just say better for the sake of the question. Is it better to focus, like you mentioned, on just a single platform, or, would it be more beneficial if I have all these channels set up and I use something like StreamYard to blast it out? Or are they two completely separate different things that need their own considerations?
Yeah, so I think that there's the platform question, and I'll answer that one that you just asked as well, but then there's the what kind of content. Are you creating pre-recorded content or are you creating live content, right? So if you're using StreamYard, obviously you are then going with the live version of that. So if you are doing, I personally fall, I think it comes down to a personal preference. Like Restream.io is an amazing software to get your lives out to all of the different platforms. But your language is so essential to getting engagement on these different platforms. So like for YouTube, subscribe and click the bell, right? For Instagram, like follow. For LinkedIn, it's connect and whatnot. And so I think that it's better to really hone in on who is the audience that you're talking to. Are they randomly scrolling while laying in bed on Instagram, or are they sitting at their computer middle of the day on LinkedIn? That audience is different. So you're streaming to multiple people, you're trying to talk to multiple different audiences, and you might not hit anyone. In my opinion. So I personally think choose one platform, choose a cadence that you can sustain, and then just stay consistent on that one platform.
Kind of like if you try to please everybody, you don't please anybody.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more, people get so caught up in the content side of it, like, or in the distribution and in the platform and all these different things. If you are an interesting person who is on a journey that is, you're making it happen for yourself, people are going to be intrigued by what you're doing and they're going to want to follow along. So it's just about really focus on you and the journey that you're on, and building that personal brand is kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I love that. What are, so I'm two questions. First question is, how do you get over, obviously, the practice makes better, not necessarily perfect. What are some exercises that maybe early on helped you get over the fear of being in front of the camera? Right. And what does that look like? What would you recommend for people? And then, the second question, the follow-up to that is, what are some resources that you constantly go back to, or, podcasts, obviously you mentioned one earlier that you listen to, or books that really helped you along your way as well?
Yeah. So I recently came up with a framework. So I have an online course called the DIY Video Roadmap that teaches people the fastest way for creating video content so that they're not spending forever doing it. And that goes everything from like setting up your set to like what gear to have, all the way to editing. And within it, I talk about how to get comfortable in front of the camera, and the exercise. This one exercise will get you comfortable within less than 15 minutes, and it will spike your on-camera performance really quickly. So what you do is you sit down in front of the camera, and you could do this today, and I challenge you to do it, okay? So put your camera down. I don't want you to hold it because you're going to be using your hands. Mm-hmm. And you're going to come up with a phrase. Just say like, I'm Amanda Horvath and I'm testing out my on-camera personality. Let's say that that's the phrase. Okay. You say it in your regular voice first and foremost. Then you're going to say it with 25% more excitement. Then do 50% more excitement with hands and shoulder and head movement. It makes a really big difference when you do that. So much more engaging. So do that, and then do it 75%, same thing with the hands, and then go 100% over the top, look ridiculous. You're going to watch it back and realize, oh, that's why I look like a serial killer in my videos, because I have zero energy and I'm talking with my regular voice. So it's all about like, smile while you talk, be louder than you think that you should be, use your hands, move around. And just that one exercise, I'm telling you, do it, and tag me if you do it in social media. Like, I would love to like send it to me or whatever. It's a great exercise.
So follow up to that, the second part, what What were some books early on that really helped you in podcasts that you constantly go back to or that you're listening to now?
Yeah, Online Marketing Made Easy. Amy Porterfield has always been my North Star when it comes to this stuff, for sure. Books and podcasts, actually. The One Thing is huge for me. I am all about focusing and not spreading yourself thin. So what is the one thing you can do such that by doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? Huge. Their podcast is incredible. Then let's see what other ones. I'm a total course junkie, so I've taken so many courses. It's interesting because I've fallen off the podcast thing recently now that COVID, like I'm not driving in the car. I'm not going to a gym, which is usually when I listen to the podcasts. Social Media Examiner podcast is awesome. I think he does an amazing job with that. Engage Video Marketing podcast for video is also fantastic, run by Ben Amos in Australia. I love Esther Perel's Totally Different.
Very different.
On relationships. Yeah.
Well, it's good to pull inspiration from different things, right? I think I was talking to Lonnie Rosales. She was on a different episode, and she's like, it's easy to get stuck in the echo chamber, right? And so to draw inspiration from other things, and she turned me on to the Stuff You Should Know podcast, and it's hilarious and fantastic, and I'm a fan.
Yeah. Okay, I'll check
it
out.
I haven't heard, so I'm excited to check them out myself. We're coming up on time. Got a couple more questions for you.
Cool.
This is my favorite question that I ask everybody. If you had a superpower, what would that be?
Like a hero superpower kind of thing? I would love to become a fly on the wall and be able to just like sneak into different areas, like, just like go into someone's house. Like, let's just see what this person is really like behind the scenes.
I mean, you could be invisible, you could you could go through.
Good point. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. We always say that though. I wish I was a fly on the wall. And that's awesome. That's great. I'm trying to think if there are any fly superheroes. I know there was.
And I guess then you could also, everyone's like, I would love to fly, right? If you're just invisible, then you can't fly. So then you got two in one. Look at that.
There's a zinger. I would just be afraid that I would get killed in an instant, right?
Right.
Everybody's always trying to fly.
But we all know they're pretty hard to kill. So
very, very much so. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make you an image of you being a fly. By the way, it's gonna be the picture for that.
Do it. My little head sticking out.
You're still. I love where you're at in your journey because, in my opinion, in the maturity life cycle, you're still early on, right? But you've made a lot of headway in a very short amount of time. And it's because you've been doubling down, right? You've been eating your own dog food. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Number one, right? So how do they find you? How do they get a hold of you? And when people think about Amanda Horvath, what are you hoping comes to mind for them?
Yeah. So first thing is amandahorvath.com it'll have all my social media accounts and also the quick start guide to video that I highly, highly recommend anyone that's looking to get started with video. It helps you find your first 5 video topics, write your explainer statement, which describes what you do, as well as that first script so that you can really get up and running with it in a way that people actually will want to watch your videos. So really recommend that. And then obviously YouTube is a great resource as well for free tutorials. What do I want people to think about when they think about Amanda Horvath? Mm-hmm. I am all about the personal development side of video. So I would love for people to think about that. And I kind of recently have been playing around with this is Video really has a spiritual component to it. You are called to video. It's like this whisper in your ear, like you should do video. And it doesn't make sense. You have all these other things going on in your business. And yet when you listen to the call and you start taking action on it, even though it doesn't make sense, it leads you on a journey that you would never expect to begin with. So for me, that's what I would love for people to think about. Not necessarily the technical side. I offer that, of course. I offer the fastest way to create videos, but I think that really like that spiritual journey that comes along with it.
I love it. Or it could be a fly whispering in your ear, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Would like to thank our partners Insperity for helping make these community spotlights happen and work. And again, if you want to see more of these interviews, we're always looking for interesting people to interview. Let us know. Shoot me an email at john@mediatech.ventures. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the community spotlight videos. Or if you just want the newsletter and you don't want to get a YouTube notification, that's fine too. Subscribe there as well so you can get more information about what's going on in the community, especially the media technology community, which we all know right now is up and to the right. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.